So when I hear the word Bodhisattva, it kind of brings to mind something very, very holy, very high up. You know, the Buddha, the image of an avatar, the Christ, or something like this. How would you say people can embody these qualities of Bodhisattva, making that vow if they want to?
Yeah, you know, I'm not, specialized in the Buddhist way, you know, the Bodhisattva path. But I know that, you know, in Buddhist tradition, you know, not everyone is a Buddha, but everyone can become a Bodhisattva, and that's just someone who strives for liberation for all beings. And so how could everyday people, they're probably doing that already. And I think it's just giving, like the way I approach it is like everything is like a river. In that way that you, for example, could have like inspiration, like you and Vera, you're painting a painting to give to this center. So it comes from somewhere, and I see it as a river of inspiration, but also of love, because you do it because you want to offer something. And so I see it as a river that works through both of you, and it comes our way. So I receive it, but it's not like just from you. It comes from, you know, God. You know, it's life itself that's moving. And so one of the things that I find very interesting is if you start seeing that when you want to do something good for somebody, you know, it can be helping an old lady in the store, you know. You start noticing that it's consciousness itself that is moving through you as a river. But it's not your consciousness, it's like the consciousness of good that is working through you. And by sharing that with the world, you feed it. And that same consciousness of good comes toward you. And so it becomes like a playing. Like one of my teachers, he talks a lot of, you know, he doesn't speak English very well, so he has very limited wording, but he always talks about circulation and circulation of energy. And so when I do my meditations, I work with what I call like the river of good. I don't know if that's like the best English words for it, but I feel that good is an energy of, you know, love and compassion and all these, you know, life-giving qualities, but it's endless. And I just place myself in that river, and I feel how it longs to inspire me, you know, to help somebody, or, you know, make something beautiful. You know, I'm not talking about, you know, airy-fairy stuff. I'm talking about, you know, inspiration for daily life. And when I'm in that river, I'll ask that river, how do you want to express through me? And it could be that I just write a postcard, you know, that morning to send to somebody, or make a phone call to somebody, just to, you know, have some, you know, have a good conversation, or cheer them up, or whatever, give them some support. Or that I just get like this grand vision of you know, bigger projects, and, you know, it depends. So how everyday people can do that is becoming aware that they're already doing it, and then seeing it as an endless river that is just flowing through their life and that wants to grow. And, you know, if you just see like popular movies and stuff, it's always the same story, you know, it's about good triumphing, and we can consciously choose to let it triumph in our own life. And that probably, if you choose that, won't make you a saint in like 24 hours, but it will improve your life right away. And the other thing that I think is important is to find a way to release the things that you're afraid of. Like my life is full of ritual. So, for example, I spend quite some moments in my life with fire. So I like to sit with fire and talk with it, and just express my feelings and find ways, like for example when I'm doing a big project, maybe some fear arises and I'm getting afraid now, so like when I would get that fear, I would normally like stop the project. And I think we all know as human. So how do you go through? Well, you probably won't get rid of the fear completely because it's new territory. So you just find your own inner strength to go through. And for me, that is done by, for example, taking some herbs, like something that grows in the garden. We use a lot of tuya here because that's a tree that we have in our garden. And I will just imagine that I can place this fear that I have in this tuya. And I will often, while talking out loud about this fear, give it to the fire. And just say, affirming for myself that I'm willing to let it go. Yeah. So that's another thing that I think is very beneficial, because a lot of people that are interested in spirituality and having a positive impact in their own life, we all have this self-sabotage going on. I've never met somebody who doesn't, but like people who really go for it, they're people who find ways to go through even when they're afraid. So I think that's also like a very good thing to be aware of, and also to realize that probably everybody has moments of fear, so that it's not like something you need to hide. And I think that's important too, to have this balance, like you're building the dream, you're building and you're supporting that dream, and on the other side you make like conscious moments to let go of everything that has come up. On the other side, I don't think that it's wise to get stuck there. Like some people, they get stuck like in everything that happened in their childhood or whatever. And I think that has its place definitely, especially if you're stuck. But at one point, I think it's beneficial to have a really like a vision for the future, for your own future, and going towards it. Because I, for myself, I'm very aware of wounds that I have, or fears that I have, that aren't healed, but they sort of keep coming back in layers. And I sort of stopped striving, to have it all fixed, because it probably will never, because we're evolving as a being. So there's always something to shed, let go of, and there's always something to grow into. And then the last thing that I think is very important, I think it's important that people support each other and support projects that are worth supporting. Like for example, last week this earthquake happened in Nepal, and a lot of people are praying worldwide, but it would be best if we all contribute financially also. Get your bank account and even give €5 or dollars. It can be if you're in a hard. But that's also a thing that I've learned. When we, in the beginning years of building Amakara, we also struggled financially, but I've sort of grew up with this principle of giving. Like my grandmother, she would also she's from the generation they would give to the church. And I think that's very important, that you never completely, even if you're having a hard time, that you're still giving to the things or the persons that you want to support. Even if it's $1, it's like seed money. It's like you're giving from your heart. I think that's it. You know, that's what builds community, but that's also what you know, builds spirit. You know, like it's the tithing principle, that you always circulate to where you find God, where you find love, where you find beauty, or whatever you want to call it, and to never stop doing that. Even if you're having a hard time, just like make small amounts then. But just, and it could also be that you offer time, you offer help. Often I will, you know, sit with people who want to build a project that is similar to something that I have done in the past, and you know, I can share my experience. I'm not pretending to, you know, be Mr. Know-it-all, because I'm clearly not. But yeah, I can share my experience, or you know, give pointers like go to that person, and that's what builds this community of energy and of goodwill, and by just, you know, doing the things like that and working with that energy of good, or maybe there's another word, a better word for it. It creates goodwill within you and without you. I don't mean without you, from the, you know, in the external, around you, and that's the way to go, because then you get this circulation. You're becoming by nature someone who loves helping others in your way.
It's interesting what you're saying, because it's very, you know, we're so used to this monetary kind of idea of holding onto money, of holding onto treasures and riches, and you know, everyone is, you know, but then there's, you know, this nature normally has this kind of tendency to share, to spread out, and there is this circulation which normally happens, and like what we call currency, and you know, that current, to allow that to flow, not to kind of be blocked, and allowing that to come.
Yeah, that's one of the, you know, the things that, you know, working with shamanism has taught me a lot about, you know, laws of circulation, because even in traditional cultures you will often see huge amounts of energy being invested in a ritual, like sometimes days and days and days of the whole community building on something that the ritual itself will probably like take a few hours, or you know, but that investment of energy, and like in many old cultures you have these sacrifices, and that's, you know, a principle that we can, you know, bring in our life. And I'm not meaning sacrifice like in a negative sense, but you're investing, you're giving. Like we did this fire ceremony together, and the whole group helped with making the place beautiful. And you can do the fire ceremony without it, but it's different when each person has invested time, even if it's 5 minutes, just to make it beautiful, because then they bring something of their spirit. And for me, like, spirit and beauty is same. They bring of their beauty from within, they bring outside, and it totally builds another base to build your ceremony on.
It kind of reminds me, you know, the way that we have a relationship with something. If we are in a relationship with something, it's important to us. Like, people have a pet, you have a pet dog, you really love your pet dog, but you may see another dog on the street and you don't love that dog because you don't have that relationship. It's interesting how, you know, by making that connection, it brings us out of our own kind of self-interest and into something which is more, open and free.
And how would it be if the same love that you feel for that pet dog, you would, you know, that's like, how would it be if you would feel that love, you know, towards the cow, and you know, it becomes like, and that's a good place to be. So, and the funny thing is that by nature, people have that within them, like children. You know, my daughter, she has this, I don't know, we call it poesy. It's like little books, and you can write like your favorite color, and then I was looking in one of those books that she brought from school, and like your biggest wish, and it's like often it's something like world peace and stuff. And when I was seeing it, I was remembering like that's what we wrote when we were children. Like it's that world that we know that is possible, as Charles Eisenstein calls it. So yeah, it's all. That's what, you know. The teacher I'm very involved with. What he often says is that spirit is not far, spirit is close, and that's the thing that I'm, in my personal life, that I'm striving for, is to be in that awareness that, you know, this beauty that we seek, it's within, and we can express it, and it's become like planting seeds. And I'm sort of interested in the idea that the hands of the, how do you call the guy who sows like seeds? We have a word.
Sower?
Yeah, the hands of the sower, they are never empty. So that's the thing that I'm fascinated with. Yeah, it's a beautiful image, and I think it's really true that we also, like, you know, how we as, you know, people in a normal life, how can we, you know, bring this movement of good into our life is by sowing good, like everywhere, like in your job, in your relation. You know, you could decide to, you know, write a beautiful letter to your loved ones today, and you could do it. And you could smile, and you could, you know, bring up understanding for somebody you have a hard time with in your work situation, for example. You could probably do it. And it would probably make your day better. And it would probably change your energy and your life. And it's like all these little things. And the one thing I want to add to that is that I'm also very interested in speed. Like speed. Yeah. You get an idea and you plant the seed. Like we were talking about next year's workshop. Yeah. And you know, we want people to get involved. So I'm writing the email like now. Yeah. I'm not waiting a week.
So because the energy's here now.
Yeah. And that's like one thing that I've noticed. And I'm pretty sure, you know, it's for everyone. Yeah. But in my life, that's like a huge factor. If I get insight, I'll write it down right away, and I'll probably, you know, start drafting the email or making the sketch, or, you know, planning or do a little research the same day. If it's a big project, I won't, you know, build the whole project in one day, but I'm taking the inspiration and that's what, you know, you have this momentum that starts building. Yeah.
That's so true, because you'll be working with your feeling or your expression, and that sort of energy was, I find sometimes when I have that initial spark is there, but if I don't go with it, I put it aside and then try to return to it, it's not the same flow.
Yeah. And also with the synchronicity, you know, of other people showing up, I noticed that, you know, it comes and you do with it, and your response, I have the impression that it's much better with people because it comes from this authentic experience. Yeah. Like when you get like this beautiful song in your head, you don't wait, like you just, you know, let it come out. Yeah. And the same it has with all these great ideas that human beings